Welcome, welcome. My name is Melissa. Some call me Mo. My channel is currently called Miss Mo. I'm a longtime crocheter from the Midwest, Nebraska to be exact. I don't live there anymore, but that's where I'm originally from. And I have about 20 plus years of crochet under my belt. I started when I was in my early 20s. Oh boy, I just told you how old I am. So today I'm basically just going to cover some of the very basics of crochet. Things like the crochet hooks that you're going to use, yarns that you're going to use, maybe storage devices, that kind of thing. And then later in the video, we're going to start getting our hands dirty, and we're going to go over some of the very basic stitches, like your chain stitch, which is the base for everything that you crochet, the slip stitch, and the single crochet. More than likely I will teach you the single crochet first and then the slip stitch, because the slip stitch is easier to learn how to do when you have more than just a chain to learn it in. All right, so to get started, I actually recommend for most beginners to use a size H or a size G. Where's my G? Oh, there's my G. And by the way, I actually prefer the boys brand. I am all about the metal hooks. I don't like crocheting with plastic because it makes that weird squeaky sound, and I can't stand that, especially when it's in my hands. Oh, it just drives me bonkers. But these are the basic ones that I use all the time. These are great for the beginners. Most of your projects will be using the H and the G. As far as millimeters, the H is 5 millimeters and the G is 4.25. I don't know if I can get this close enough so you guys can see. 4.25 and 5 millimeters. Now, if you are wanting to do a bigger project or something that has a larger yarn, then you'll want to go with a bigger size hook. This is actually a 6 millimeter. The largest I've ever used was actually an N. Well, actually, no, I think it was an O or a Q. But this is also a staple in mine. It's an N, and it is a 9 millimeter. I don't know if you can see that very well. Now, my favorite thing to crochet is the small stuff. So you will see I have a 6 millimeter. Well, it's a size 6. And it's a 1.8 millimeter, and as you can see, it's bent. This bad boy has been around the block a time or two. I don't know if you can see that. It's pretty old. It's been around long, probably before I was even born. I think I might have swiped that one from my grandmother. So here is another 6 that is not bent. I normally work with a size 6 or a size 7 when I'm crocheting with thread. Now, you'll also need some tapestry needles. You can get a bigger one like that, depending on the size yarn that you're using. There's a bigger one. And smaller if you're doing like the thread work like I do. That's actually my favorite. And then on occasion you do have to use actual regular thread. If I can get my little needle out here. And so you'll need to use a regular sewing needle. I don't know if you can even see that little guy. He's so little. Now, my tapestry needles, I actually keep them in this little thing. It's from Yarnology. I think I probably got it from like Hobby Lobby or something like that. And I just keep all my little needles right in there so I always know where they are. Now, I used to have 2 of them, but my dog likes to chew on wood, so it got lost to the wood chewer. There we go. All right, and then any other things, you might have to mark stuff, especially if you're working in the round, you might have to mark stuff, in which case you would use a stitch marker. Now, if you are more into the Irish lace, which I do, you'll also need like pins. And I will get into that sometime later in the future on how to do Irish lace. All right, let's set that aside. Now let's get in, oh, and can't forget the old trusty scissors. Definitely something you need all the time. And then something to keep your crochet hooks in. I just use a pencil holder. All right, so the main thread or yarn that you'll ever use is actually what we call worsted weight. It's considered a medium weight. This is actually a very good weight for beginners, so they can learn how to do the basic stitches with this, and then and eventually then you'll advance to more threads like well, this is actually a good beginner one too. This is actually considered a heavy weight, thick weight. This is a Lion brand. This is actually a little bit more complicated to work with because the strands kind of fray a little bit. You would use like a size, you could use a size N hook for this. But the worsted weight, you'll always use like a size J, or not a J, a size G or a size H. You can also do stuff like, sometimes I will use what they use in knitting, which is a fingering weight, which is a real fine weight. I love this color right here. It's got a little bit of a sparkle. I don't know if you can really see that sparkle, but there's a little bit of a sparkle there. I use that quite often when I'm doing the Irish lace or freeform. My favorite thing to do is actually using a size 10, which is a thread. You can see I got a big giant ball of it because I use it a lot. So it is very much so a fine thread. Let me see if I can find a piece that I have done or started on using that fine thread. Well, here's a good example. Here's a good example. So I've just made these little flowers. It's actually going to be a part of a bedspread that I'm making for someone in my family. So this is just the inside of it, but this would be something that you would make with the fine thread. All right, so that's just the kind of the basics, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to start in on learning the stitches. Welcome back. So we're going to start in with the very, very basic stitches, but first we got to learn how to hold our yarn. So myself, I actually hold my yarn with my ring finger and my pinky, and then I wrap it around my finger when I'm holding it. But we'll get into that as soon as I show you how to do a slip knot. Everybody does a little bit of different with a slip knot. I personally like to do it this way, so I'll show you the way I do it. With the end facing toward me, I just wrap it around my first finger, wrap it up and over. Then I take my hook, and by the way, I'm using the worsted weight and the size H hook. So now we're going to go up underneath the first piece of yarn, up, over. We're going to go up and over. We're going to scoop that with our hook and bring it up and pull that knot through. Let me show you again. So with this end, the end facing toward me, I go up over my finger, across, and then I take my hook, go up underneath the first, well, maybe the first piece of yarn on my finger, go across, scoop it, and swoosh. I guess you could call it that way. Now, you can create the tension, or I guess you could say you can move it, make the loop bigger or smaller by controlling the knot. So the way I did it, the knot is controlled. You make it tighter by grabbing the piece that's not the end, that's attached to the ball. All right, so now that we have made a loop or a slip knot, now I'm going to show you how to hold your yarn. So you're going to, with the part on the hook, you're going to hold that to your right, and then I take my finger, ring finger, pinky finger, and then scoop it around my first finger, just like that. And then I hold the knot or my piece of work in my middle finger and my thumb. All right, so now that we got the basics, let's do that again. Pinky, ring finger, loop it around the ring or the index finger. This is how you control your tension. If you are doing it too tight, you're going to have one heck of a time trying to get your work, getting your hook inside your work. If you go too loose, then it's going to look sloppy. So you control your tension through those 3 fingers right there. Okay, your middle finger and your thumb are strictly there to just guide it. All right, so to make the first stitch, which is a chain, all you're going to do is loop the hook up underneath the yarn, scoop it, and pull it through the first loop. Okay, that's your first chain, and you just keep doing that. Go up under, scoop it, loop it, up under, scoop it, loop it. And when you're doing chains, you want to do them a lot more loose, because it's harder to get into them if you go too tight. I learned that the hard way. And we're going to scoop and loop, scoop and loop, scoop and loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 10. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. There's 10. All right, so now we're going to get into the second stitch. And I said that I would teach you how to do a single crochet before I taught you how to do a slip stitch, which is going to be the truth. So when you're doing a single crochet into chains, you want to skip that first stitch in the chain. So we're going to skip that stitch, and we're going to go, some people just grab the first loop, some people go at the back and grab this little, because if you look at the back, it's got these knots. So you can do that. You can grab the knot in the back and do it that way. Sometimes that's actually better because it looks nicer. I personally like to grab this top piece and the knob in the back. So then I have one loop down underneath the hook. So we're going to go in there. So for a single crochet, all we're going to do is we're going to go into that second chain from your hook. You're going to insert your hook into your stitch. You're going to grab the yarn. I go from, what is that, the bottom to the top. So the crochet goes under the yarn, and you're going to scoop that. You're going to pull up that loop. So now you have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to do that again. You're going to scoop the yarn and pull up both of those loops. So then you've just made your first single crochet. All right, so let's do that again. And it looks like my last stitch kind of got a little tight there, so we're gonna do that again. All right, so we're gonna take that loop. I usually like to hold my loop with my other hand, just to make sure it's nice and secure. So then we're gonna go from the second chain from the hook. We're gonna insert into the stitch, wrap the yarn, pull through the stitch. Then we're going to go wrap the yarn, and we're going to pull through 2 stitches. There you go. You've got your first single crochet. Now we're going to do the same thing in the next stitch. We're going to go insert the hook, scoop the yarn, pull through the stitch, scoop the yarn, pull through 2 stitches. Now you've got 2 single crochets. We're going to keep going. I'm going to insert into the stitch, scoop the yarn, pull through, scoop the yarn, pull through 2. All right. We're going to do that all the way across. Now you'll notice that it's kind of fiddly, and that's okay. I'm a veteran, and I still find that doing the first row of a project is always fiddly because you have to do it in those chains. The next row gets a lot easier. All right. And remember, we're inserting the hook, scooping, pulling, scooping, pull through 2. And again, insert the hook, scoop, pull, scoop, and pull through 2. All right, so there is your first row of single crochets. Let's go ahead and start a second row. So what we're going to do to start the second row, and everybody kind of does this a little bit different, and depending on what I'm doing, if I'm doing a clothing item, I will actually do 1 single crochet and I will turn to the left, but some people like to turn to the right. So it depends on what you like. Eventually you're going to have this piece on this side. So you're going to be crocheting from right to left. So for the sake of this, I am actually just going to, we're going to chain 1. We're going to move over, flip it to the left. And for this, what we're going to do is, you can see on the top here, it kind of looks like it's braided. And then on the side, you can kind of see where there's a little bit of a spot right there underneath those 2 braids. So you're going to grab the hook and you're going to insert into what we call that stitch, which is under those two braid pieces. You're going to scoop it, pull it through, scoop it, pull through two. So then you've made your first stitch in the second row. And we're just going to do that all the way across. We're going to show you again, kind of at a side angle. And go all the way to the end. And this is something that when somebody's brand new and they just learn how to crochet, this is often a stitch at the end that people miss. So we're going to go back and we're going to count from the beginning. So the very first one is this right here. So I always like to look at the top. So we're going to count this one and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've got 8. Well, I guess we did crochet 9. So I'm going to have a total of 9 stitches. So this one at the very end is often the ones that people miss. And that is the 9th one. And you're wondering how it is that I chained 10 but I only have 9 stitches. Remember, we skipped that first chain on that at the very beginning. If you wanted 10 stitches, you would have to chain 11. So we actually have 9. There you go. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to do one more row of single crochets so you have a little bit of practice. Now I'm going to do this a little bit different this time, because when I'm doing a piece of clothing or something like that, I will actually just skip that that very first chain at the end of the row where you chain one and then you turn. I'm actually just going to turn and then I'm going to do my single crochet. The reason why, and you'll see it on the end of this one, is that it leaves like a weird little bump at the very beginning of the row. And so if you're doing some kind of a piece of clothing and you want that to have a nice clean line, you don't want to do that chain and then turn. So I just turn and then start my stitch. All right, so I'm in the middle of the row. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to do the slip stitch right here in the middle real quick. So a slip stitch is really not much different from a single crochet. The only difference is that instead of going in and scooping like that and then pulling through 2, what we're going to do is we are just inserting our hook, scooping our yarn, and we're pulling through all the way. Let's do that again. So we're going to insert a hook, we're going to scoop our yarn. So now we have 2 loops on the hook, but we're going to go through that second hoop, and now you've got a slip stitch. Now you see how it, you can kind of see the difference a little bit here, where you can see that there's a clear larger stitch right there, and then this one just kind of sits flatter on the work. A lot of times people will use a slip stitch if they want to skip a stitch or make it look like a skip stitch, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what it looks like. But I'm going to go back and we're going to finish that row with a single crochet. Now if you want to, you can keep on practicing. If you made your enough slip stitch, you can actually just go back and forth and make a like a dishcloth or like a coaster to set under your glass. So that's kind of what it looks like. So you got 3 rows of single crochets, and you can kind of look at this so you can kind of see how it's supposed to kind of look. You see how you kind of got the little bit of a V here, and you got kind of like a little bump right there. That's how you know you're doing it right. And then at the top, you're going to see those braids. All right, so let's go one more row and give you guys a little more practice. I'm actually, well, okay, for the sake of teaching you the correct way, we're going to do a chain, and then we're going to do the single crochet. And you can kind of see, you see how this kind of has this little bump right there? That's what I'm talking about. When you are doing that chain and then turning, it'll leave that little bump right there. Whereas on the other side, you see it didn't have that little bump, and it's going to lay a little bit flatter right there. And give it more of a crisp line at the end. Oh, and here we go again. We're going to get to the end of the row, and we're going to count our stitches real quick. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then that rascally little stitch at the end, this is often the one that people miss. So you can kind of turn it and twist it a little bit so you can see where the two strands are, making that braid. And we're going to go right through both of those. And that's like one of the most common beginner mistakes, is that they miss that one stitch way at the other end, and then they have a triangle instead of a square or a rectangle. All right, well, that is pretty much it for our beginner tutorial. If you guys like what you see, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and a subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you want to get notifications for when new videos will come out. I will start trying to make some interesting videos every single week, or every other week, depending on the time constraint in my life. And I believe the next one that I'm going to be hosting, I'm going to be talking about the half double crochet as well as a double crochet, and then we're going to do our first project. All right, until next time, we'll see y'all later.